Britain had a big election yesterday, and while I don't know a lot about British politics, let me tell you what I do know. Britain is basically a two-party country like America or Canada, with one large powerful party on the left and one large powerful party on the right. The dominant party on the right is the Conservatives, or Tories, and they've basically always been around. The dominant party on the left, however, has changed a few times over the centuries. It used to be the Whigs, and then the Liberals, and now Labour. Britain is, of course, an interesting and distinct country with its own interesting and distinct issues and philosophies, but overall, I would say British politics are probably more like North American politics than they are different. Brits define ideas like left and right and progressive and conservative basically the same way we do here, which helps explain why people like Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair were able to make friends so easily. Now, even though Britain is basically a two-party system, one of the interesting subplots of British politics over the last few decades has been the rise of third parties. Not a lot of people in North America know this, but at any given time, the British Parliament may contain as many as 10 different political parties, though many of the smaller ones will only have 2 or 3 seats each. Many of these tiny parties represent the non-England parts of the British Isles, where people, for a variety of reasons, are alienated from mainstream British politics. When you look at a color-coded map, you'll notice that a lot of the people in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland are voting for their own weird little parties, many of which are nationalist or separatist. The Scottish Nationalist Party had a particularly good showing this year, which was bad news for the Labour Party, which traditionally relies very heavily on the votes of Scotland to get elected. Since the 1920s, Britain's leading third party has been the Liberals, who, although displaced by Labour as the preferred party of the British centre-left, have continued to hobble along in zombified form. They have gone through a few different reincarnations and are currently known as the Liberal Democrats, and beginning in the 1980s, they seem to be making a very slow comeback, gradually winning more and more seats. Last night, however, they were badly decimated and now sit in a distant 4th place behind the Scottish Nationalists. Talking of seats, I should note that Britain uses the same electoral system as Canada or America, which means that every member of the British Parliament represents a distinct geographic community, and members are elected using a plurality system, which means that the guy who gets the most votes wins, even when that's not an outright majority. And like America and Canada, this means that the national popular vote is basically irrelevant and can sometimes be at dramatic odds with who wins or loses. Last night, the Tories won a majority of seats despite only winning 37% of the popular vote, and the Scottish Nationalists came in third despite winning about half as many votes as the Liberals. The further right UK Independence Party, for its part, won more of the popular vote than the Scottish Nationalists and Liberals put together, yet they only won 2 measly seats. All British political parties have bosses, and the boss of the party that wins the most seats in Parliament gets to be Prime Minister, in this case the Tory boss, Mr. Cameron. Because British politics is dominated by 2 large political parties, Britain tends to lack a lot of the parliamentary drama you see in countries like Italy, Greece, or Israel, in which they get the so-called pizza parliament effect, in which lots of small parties win lots of seats each, so it's very difficult to tell who won or lost. But the British like drama, and so in 2010, when the Tories won the most seats but not an outright majority, they used the phrase hung parliament to describe the situation and make the country sound ungovernable. British prime ministers had governed with hung parliaments in the past, and certainly Canada has seen hung parliaments aplenty, but in 2010, Mr. Cameron did something unprecedented and formed a coalition government with the third-place Liberal Democrats in order to cobble together a majority. Britain only previously had coalition governments of this sort during the 2 world wars, so it was clear that Mr. Cameron was looking to Europe for inspiration, where many prime ministers have to form multi-party coalitions in order to ensure political stability. Yesterday, however, Mr. Cameron's Tories won an outright majority, so I guess the era of coalition governments in Britain is once again over. So anyway, that's what I know about politics in the UK. I think it's important to be humble when you're talking about politics in another country, so if my analysis seems a little superficial, it's because I've tried to focus on the less controversial stuff. But if you're a British person watching this, I'm still interested in hearing everything I got wrong. And just so you have more material, I will now attempt to pronounce the names of various British political parties. Sinn Féin, Plaid Cymru, Alalant. I thought you people spoke English.